I'm going to do a slightly different video today, and we're going to be speaking about a topic, and I think that potentially I might do a topic per week where I'm basically just talking like this and raw to the camera, so you can have some education, but also it's in like a small little snippet segment, and I can just basically talk and you can get something from it, you can learn something from it, and not have to deal with all the fluff and the edits and the chops and the changes and stuff. So for this week's one, we're going to be talking about what makes a great movement for hypertrophy. Now, we're really going to talk about today the trifecta. I've been watching Kanye West, and we were throwing up a lot of the Rockefeller sign. Anyway, I did say I was going to get rid of the fluff, and that was fluff. Well, let's get to it. So in the trifecta, we have the stimulus to fatigue ratio in this bottom corner of the angle, which is going to be you need a lot of stimulus and some fatigue, but you need more stimulus than fatigue if the kind of movement is going to be effective for hypertrophy. You also need to take the kind of the movement very, very close to failure. Now, some movements can be very, very hard to take to mechanical failure. Think like a bench press, right? You're kind of like almost taking it to 1 or 2 RER because you're scared that you're just going to get decapitated. Then also, how easy is it for execution to be in place in this bottom corner kind of execution? So like how do you have to spend the whole time learning the movement? Something like a conventional deadlift is a very, very kind of big one here. Like people spend 6, 7, 8 months really trying to get the conventional deadlift kind of into play, right? So if you're talking about the stimulus to fatigue ratio, we'll just do that one really quickly as the first one. Stimulus to fatigue ratio, probably in favor of fatigue. The kind of it's trying to take it to failure is, yeah, it's quite hard, especially mechanical failure. You can obviously take it technical failure, which is form breakdown. And then on the back side, on the kind of execution side, it just takes a while to find the groove. And within the kind of inside of that kind of triangle, you could also talk about things like injury as well, like how much of an injury risk does this movement actually carry over? And then their little intersections as well, like do you actually fucking enjoy it? Like you aren't gonna design a whole kind of program where everything you do is what you love to do, because essentially that's gonna be playing towards things like too much mind-muscle connection, too much kind of feely movements rather than actually considering muscle tension. But essentially, when you look at your kind of program, when you look at your training script, when you look at what you're selecting for your movements for your program, you have to run it through the trifecta. Does it have a good stimulus to fatigue ratio? Can you take it kind of close to failure? And can you perform the kind of movement without having to spend absolutely fucking years trying to perform a movement? So we'll just skim through a couple of movements just so you can get an idea, and then from that what you can do is go into your own training and go, nah, maybe this movement isn't so great. So again, the first one would have been conventional deadlifts, we've already done that. Second one would be something like a bench press. Stimulus to fatigue ratio, yeah, it's not that great. Intensity, not that great. Execution can take a while. Yeah, in my opinion, and we also have to talk about kind of injury risk as well. In my opinion, something like a bench press is probably a no-go for most people. It does cause a lot of shoulder like niggles, especially in the rotator cuff, just because it does put you in a bit of a weird position, especially when it's like pinning down your scaps. So yeah, that might be something to maybe consider. Next up we can just do like the Smith press for an example. Stimulus to fatigue ratio is okay. You can take it very, very close to failure because you're kind of a little bit safer, kind of when you're going into the kind of, especially when you're pushing up, you can kind of take it a little bit closer to failure because you're not scared it's going to decapitate you. And then execution, really something like a Smith, get on, unhook, you can't really go wrong with it. So if that's kind of in terms of, like, that's the difference between like a bench press and something like a Smith press. I would much rather program a client something like a Smith press due to the kind of movement trifecta here. So yeah, go through a few of your exercises in your program and see kind of which movement you can basically swap out, which movements are providing you a lot of stimulus, yeah, and basically which exercises are just not. Anyway, peace, love, see you in the next vlog.